There it is.
Oops.
Uh-oh. You should have had you put your PowerPoint up yet?
Yeah, so
There
that's
we
on
go.
there now. Huh?
Excellent. There it is.
So November is Rotary Foundation Month, and that's the month that we obviously try and celebrate our foundation, discuss and educate. I'm here not to twist your arms, although it's a lot tougher on an internet meeting than it would be in a real meeting, but really educate Rotarians and to learn about what the foundation is all about. Our foundation is very, very special. It makes us as Rotarians very different than many other service clubs, than many of those other ones that, you know, are animal names and things like that. But we as Rotarians have the Rotary Foundation. We're not lucky enough, many of us, to be Rockefellers or Fords and have our own foundation. But as Rotarians, we have the Rotary Foundation, and I'll talk about it and talk about what it is. And as the title shows, it's one of my charities of choice. It's not the only place I give money to, but it's one that I think highly enough. And we'll talk about why it's such that I choose to do it. And I hope encourage you all to also encourage contributing on a regular basis to the foundation. This is normally a banner that I bring with me and pull up for each meeting. And it stands there, I talk about it, but it's really the key message about the foundation is that every minute of every day, someplace in the world, because we've got Rotarians in over 200 countries, somebody is doing something to feed somebody, to house somebody, medicate people, you know, heal people, train somebody. All of this is being done by Rotarians, the Rotary clubs, and very often because of the Rotary Foundation. This foundation, there's not a bunch of people back in Evanston, Illinois as the headquarters deciding how to spend money, but we as Rotarians, through the grant process, we choose to how to spend the money on the thing. So it's just absolutely wonderful. It's very, very special, and it does some very, very wonderful things. I can go on for a long time talking about it, but we'll just, first of all, the mission of the Rotary Foundation, and to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding and goodwill and peace through the improvement of health, support of education, and the alleviation of poverty. And that's what the mission is. It's really our support angle. Rotary wouldn't be what it is today if we didn't have the Rotary Foundation on top of us to help us do all the wonderful things that we do in the world. Again, you know, I go on forever about it, but what we do here is we work together, provide clean water, support education, fight diseases. These are in the areas we'll talk a little later about the key avenues, the key areas that we focus on in Rotary. But the bottom one there, it's like-minded people coming together to tackle challenges. And that's what we as Rotarians do, and that's what our Rotary Foundation does to help support us that. So it makes us as Rotarians very, very special to have that Rotary. Other people think very highly of our foundation also. In fact, the Charity Navigator, a great resource if you want to look at a nonprofit. In fact, you can go on their website and key in some other nonprofit to see what they think of it. But they have given the Rotary Foundation 4 stars, their highest possible rating for now 11 years in a row. Unprecedented. So it's just absolutely what they think about. They rate us because of the way we run it, the low overhead we have, the fact the stewardship that we have in running the money and watching what we do with it. So again, there's other ones out there, very good charities like the American Red Cross, like Make-A-Wish, and those are 3-star charities. Not that they're not good charities, but we get an unprecedented for 11 years in a row, their highest rating of 4 stars. In addition to that, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations think so highly of us that they take our donations for every dollar we do, they add $2 more to it, so tripling the donations that we give. And that's because of what they think so highly of how the Rotary Foundation is doing the End Polio Now campaign. So it's not, the largest philanthropic group in the world supports the Rotary Foundation and how we do things. 90+% of all the funds go to projects and programs. We have very little overhead, lots of volunteer efforts, make it happen. So the Rotary Foundation, not only us as Rotarians think it's special, but outside people think the same too. So what I talk a little bit today is how the Rotary Foundation works, and again, what it does. And that's really in that sort of in the model of how TED Talks are often given too. So that's the approach I'm using tonight. The foundation itself has 3 key components. The Polio Plus Fund, and that's where money's used in our fight against polio. The annual fund, which is our support today, and that's what we also refer to many times as every Rotarian every year, that we ask Rotarians to contribute to the annual fund on a regular basis. And the third one is the endowment fund, at one time called the permanent fund. And that's where money is given to the foundation. The principal is never spent and only the earnings are there. It's where you can leave a legacy, where you can leave money so it continues working for you after you're gone. And so we'll go in a little more detail in just a slide here from now. The first one is the End Polio Now campaign, and that's something that goes back to the mid-'80s when one Rotarian in one club in the Philippines saw the need to put the vaccine to work in the other parts of the Philippines, the poorer sections. They worked on it, their club worked on it, they got a grant to work on it, and eventually it became a total program for all Rotary to work towards the eradication of polio. It's right now, it's only endemic in 2 countries in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Nigeria is on the countdown. Once you have a case of polio, you have to go 3 years before you're considered polio free. August of this year, they were their 2nd year. So in August of next year, they will be considered polio free if they can go until then with that polio case. 3 years ago, we had 70 cases in the whole world. That's down from over 300,000 when Rotary started. 300,000 a year. 3 years ago, we had 70. Then we had 30. Last year, there were only 22 cases in the whole world of polio, and only in 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we've actually had 25 cases so far this year. It's the first time in the 30 years that we've actually gone up on it. The optimists actually say it's a good thing. The polio vaccine can be taken and used, and not until you actually have people that show the symptoms do really know where the polio vaccine is. So they've used these cases currently to go in with programs to make sure they do inoculation. This is all being done with dollars that you can contribute to the Rotary Foundation. The annual fund, as I talked about before, is the primary funding source for the foundation grants and activities. And this is where we ask every Rotarian every year to give a minimum of $25 to go towards these funds. Contributions are credited to both the Donors Club and to the individuals, and it leads towards Paul Harris Fellows and multiple Paul Harris Fellows. So when you give a cumulative amount of $1,000, then you receive your first Paul Harris and then multiple Paul Harrises after that. The funds of this basically come back and support us locally through the shared system, and I'll talk about that in a second too. And the third one, as I talked about, is the endowment fund, or your legacy, the ability to make an impact now and forever. I'm a member of the Bequest Society because I've agreed to give $10,000 or more in my endowment for this fund. I'm hoping that that will then go on to do good. My hope is it won't happen for a long time from now that they'll get the money. But at some point, they'll get the money. And so this is a case where only the earnings are spent and never the principal that you go there, so they continue building it up. This is a chart out of last year's presentation. It shows the bucket things. The first one being the End Polio Now bucket, and that's where the money goes and puts directly to use. The annual fund, or the Every Rotarian Every Year, is a fund where approximately 1.2 million Rotarians give $120 million a year to the annual fund. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. But for my example, it's $120 million. That money sits in the fund for 3 years, and the earnings and the investment income from that goes and supports sizably all of the overhead for all 3 funds. So the money you originally give to the Every Rotarian then gets released after the 3 years. And it's the earnings in those 3 years that then covers the overhead. So that's why such a large percentage of our money is put to work. The endowment fund is a value now just over $1 billion. Only 350 million of it is cash. The other 650 million is referred to as expectancies. And that's people like myself who have committed to giving a certain amount of money to turn into future cash in the end. And that right now, the 350 in cash is earning us about $15 to $20 million a year. So that on top of the 120 that's been released from 3 years ago means that they have about $130 to $140 million to do good in the world from the foundation. These are, of course, numbers change slightly each year as the amount given to the foundation changes. The shared system is what it comes back to. Half of the money that comes back out from both the annual fund after 3 years and the earnings gets given to the district designated fund, another famous Rotary acronym. And that's money that comes right back, in our case, to our district 5020. So we get the money that we contributed 3 years ago, we get half of that back, and we get half of the earnings on the endowment that comes from our district. And that money is used by our district primarily for district grants. and we choose that as our number one source. We also use small parts of the funds to also help the polio campaign, to help the peace centers, and to support other efforts that are related to the foundation. The other 50% of it stays in Evanston, Illinois, and is used by the World Fund to match grants that are done around the world. Some of it also goes to the Peace Center. Some of it goes to the Rotary Youth Exchange and some other activities. But the sizable amount of the money is being in district grants and global grants that we as Rotarians decide how the money is spent by applying for grants. Again, the areas of focus. The foundation has 6 areas of focus that we have. Peace and conflict, which is a long-standing Rotary project of working that, and we do lots of things. Our peace centers in 6 colleges around the world where we get advanced degrees to students to help in peace and conflict resolution, other items. Disease prevention and treatment, and that's not just polio. There's Rotary clubs that do grants to help things like malaria, hepatitis C, and other endemic illnesses. Water and sanitation, Rotarians are known regularly for doing that and building wells. These are the 6 different areas, and when you do a global grant, it has to be tied to one of these grants. District grant not necessarily has to be tied to one of these, but it has to be humanitarian and typically falls into one of these categories. District community grants, and this is where you as a club can decide that where you want to spend the money. It's short-term in duration. It happens during one Rotarian year. So you apply for it and you conduct the grant, and then it has to close out by May of the Rotary year. It can be both local and do something here, or it can be international. And I'll show a couple examples of different ones that clubs from our district. It does require active Rotarian participation. So we're not looking just to write checks for this thing, but we're looking for Rotary involvement. There are stewardship guidelines and keeping track of receipts and keeping track of the money's done, making sure we avoid conflicts of interest, and working on other things that are important to the district grants. One example of district grant, and this was an international district grant, and a club in Port Orchard is doing famine release in Kenya. The grant was $7,000 was the size of the project they did. And once they spent the money, the district reimbursed them for $3,500. So you spend the $7,000, $3,500 is your club, and $3,500 is the money that you get reimbursed from the district grant that comes out of the foundation. And that's a very typical grant that's being done, but this one's being done internationally. There's no need for a Rotary club in that area. You can just work directly with an NGO or some other entity in that country to provide the services that you want to do. The second example is the more typical one, where it's a local one. The Lakewood Club did a session with the summer camp with the Boys and Girls Club, and again, it was $7,000, and they got reimbursed by $3,500 from the district. A local by nature, it had to take place within the Rotary year and follow the many guidelines that they need to follow. The global grants are much larger by now. It needs to respond to a community need. In fact, the global grants require a formal community assessment, that you make sure that you know that the community needs what you're giving them, and you've got and there's a whole process you need to go through to justify the fact that community does it. I use an example of when our club did a district grant on getting community assessment and making sure you ask the club. Our club for several years did backpacks at the school year, the beginning of the school year, to work with students there. And we actually went to them before the school year and asked them, was there something special the kids need in their backpack this year, anything particular in that area? And they were actually very open to us and said, in reality, we get enough backpacks for schools. Many organizations give it to us, and we end up with more backpacks we need for kids, which kind of came to us a surprise after we'd given them to for several years. And we said, then what do you really need? And they told us that what they really need is shoes. And many of the kids there don't have proper shoes, have hand-me-down shoes, have shoes that they can't use. And this is of course, that's our stuff. So again, by asking them, we worked with them, and we were able to work with the local shoe provider here to get gift cards and provide with shoes. Again, an example of community assessment working with it. When you do a global grant, you need to have active Rotarian participation. Not everybody in the club, but hopefully there's somebody there more than just writing a check. Has to be when they are in. And you need a national partner. That's the one thing, and one of the things that allows Cherry Navigator to think so highly of our projects. So you need a club within that country. So it's got to be 2 clubs in 2 different countries, and that can be that thing. The $30,000 seems like a lot of money, but a lot of it comes from leverage. If your club or several clubs put together $10,000, it's matched by the district 1 for 1 for another $10,000, It's matched by the Rotary International out of the Global Fund, by the World Fund for another 1.5 times it. So the original $10,000 climbs very quickly to $35,000. And of course, $35,000 is a fairly sizable grant that you as a club can lead, and you're deciding where those monies get spent. A couple examples here. One is from the Campbell River and some of the other clubs up in the, on our Canadian friends there, that they did a water and sanitation project in Haiti, or actually they're in the midst of doing it now. They raised $17,800, and with the leverage of the district, the leverage of Rotary International, and in this case also the leverage of the Canadian government, who contributes to projects that are done by Canadian clubs, they were able to raise it, leverage it up to $77,000. An amazing size of a grant, provided a significant project in Haiti for latrines and water systems to help that sort of stuff. So it's a pretty interesting way that the foundation and global grants do it. This is kind of a new one. The next one, this is Victoria, BC clubs. Very obviously a great thing here in this sort of stuff. Several of them there. They're working with the Buckhead Atlanta Club to do a global grant. 2 clubs, 2 different countries. They can't be in the same district, so they couldn't have used one of our clubs here in our district. They had to go outside our district. But the Victoria clubs raised $5,400, and with the leverage of the districts and also the international, it became a $54,000 grant. They're using it to help with their First Nations people up there in a friendship center to do that, and with their First Nation being what we refer to as the Native Americans or the Indians in the area. But the understanding they have between the Victoria Club and the Buckhead Atlanta Club is next year they'll flip it the other direction, and they'll do something in the area of the Buckhead Atlanta for the poverty there. So it's sort of informally been referred to as a reverse global grant, because it's being done in 2 developed countries and not necessarily a third world country. But again, we have needs here, and particularly needs at very large size. So this is something that I'm encouraging Rotary clubs to look at. And there are clubs out there, there's places on Rotary.org that you can find partner clubs to work with and to try and do these type of processes. What you can do, give to the Rotary Foundation. Obviously, that's what, you see the goods here, and the goods take place because Rotarians like you and I give to the foundation. Participating in grants. Clubs that do grants give more money to the foundation, and that's obviously what we encourage you. Plus, you decide where that money is being spent by your choice of the grant and where you're going on it. You can learn a lot more. Rotary.org has got lots and lots of information about the foundation, about grants, partnerships on grants. There's all sorts of information there that you can do to take action in the Rotary. Participating in every Rotarian every year. We encourage every Rotarian to do that money, and that's a minimum of $25, and the club needs to get $100 on average to be receive a certification for their club being every Rotarian year. Become a Paul Harris Fellow, and that's where you accumulate $1,000 or more. Each $1,000 you get a Paul Harris. The Paul Harris Society is one which I'm a member of, where we commit to giving $1,000 every single year to the foundation. That's only $84 a month, or barely a couple Starbucks a week to be able to become a Paul Harris Society member and go there. A benefactor is back to the endowment, where you leave a legacy. A benefactor is one who leaves $1,000 or more. The Bequest Society is one where you leave $10,000 or more. You can make your donations directly online. You can go to the Rotary.org, and there's a donate button there and be able to do that. You can also do it through Rotary Direct, where you can sign up and you can do it one time. You can do it monthly or annually. Again, back to the $1,000 a year is only $84 a month, and you can sign up for that. You can come out of your bank account or your credit card. If it comes your credit card, you can earn whatever points you earn on your credit card at the same time. So I highly encourage people to participate in Rotary Direct and move that forward. These are some of the club recognition banners for the 100% participation in the things, 100% every Rotary year, 100% Paul Harris Society Club, which would be a rare thing to do. It's not happened in our district, but we do have down below, we have 100% Paul Harris clubs. And there are multiple clubs that have 100% Paul Harris clubs. And we only count people who have been in the club more than 1 year. So a brand new member has until their 2nd year to accumulate their Paul Harris Fellow and move forward with that. Not doing, there's nothing we want to do that to delay adding a member just to ruin your 100% Paul Harris Fellow. And also on per capita basis, we like to measure it on per capita basis. Our district, because of the size and the number of Rotarians in our district, over 4,500. We're the largest district in the Western Hemisphere, and we contribute the most to the foundation most years on a district basis. But our per capita numbers are not very good because of the fact that our number gets big because the number of Rotarians are, but in our district last year averaged $161 per Rotarians. Our zone, which are those 8 to 10 districts in the Western Hemisphere, or western part of the United States, averaged $181. So the goal is to try and obviously increase and improve our per capita contributions. Your club, which of course is new, in fact, every Rotarian every year in the 17-18 results counted nobody because everybody was deemed to be new in that year. Your annual fund competitions, though, were, for those who gave you, was just over $40. Governor Craig this year has set a goal of at least 66% of everybody participating in every return every year. My personal thing, if it sounds like you're hitting every return every year, sounds like the goal should be 100%. But we averaged about 58% last year on a district basis. And again, as I said, we averaged on a per capita, the 161. Your club has 13 members who are Paul Harris Fellows, so you're virtually on top of 100% Paul Harris Fellows there. 3 of you are Paul Harris Societies, 2 major donors. A major donor is one who has contributed $10,000 or more to the foundation over the time accumulated that area. Benefactors are those who have committed $1,000 or more from their estate or from their wills and bequest $10,000. And 4 of you guys are using Rotary Direct, and I thank you for that and encourage others to use the Rotary Direct thing. All time since last year, which obviously now is a very short period of time, and these are, many of you as individuals have given through your prior clubs and the like. This is money that's been accredited to the E-Club since it started, which is just over $2,000, just under $2,000 to do that all the time. And I obviously anticipate with the number of Paul Harris Society people who have and other donors here, I expect that number to go up very quickly as your club moves forward in that area. I'm going to finish with a short video here, which comes out of Rotary. On behalf of the Rotary Foundation, our district, myself, thank you for hearing my pitch today. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about the foundation.
Thank you.
So Howard, number one, thank you so very, very much. I like the new presentation. I'm going to open it up for questions here real quickly, but I wanted to comment that first, congratulations to you. Howard is going to be the district foundation chair starting next July. So he certainly has a great background. And I did notice, Howard, that you had a lot more foundation grant orientation to this presentation than before.
And that's, as I picked that up, right now as fundraising chair, I spent most of the time last year in the presentation just talking about the 3 buckets in that area. But I think the why is a big part of the fact that we do these grants and what that's all about. So, and just the district grants right now, for a club to do a district grant, you have 2 steps in it. One, you have to be, you have to be qualified. Somebody has to go through training, and we now have training online. So you can do the training online. The training's open right now. There's 3 modules. It takes about 30 minutes a module to complete it. You take a quiz. You can take the quiz as many times as you want until you pass it, and then you're qualified to do that. And the second one is an MOU, a memorandum of understanding the club has to sign, which is basically the fact that you'll follow the rules of the grant and move forward in that. And those 2 things will qualify. February 2nd at 9 a.m. will be the time to submit a district grant for the next year. So we're doing it earlier than we have in the past things. Mostly we're doing ahead of DTA because we don't need to wait to DTA to get people trained. So I highly encourage you that. Unfortunately, we have a greater demand than we have access to district funds. One of the secrets to that obviously is encouraging more people to contribute more money so we get more money back in the district funds. But right now, the resource is somewhat limited. There may be, after December here, there may be a second round of the current year ones. So we look at the grants that are in current year process right now. If they won't be completed or won't be spent all the time, we may, and you therefore have to be qualified to do that in this current year, in the 18-19 year. The February 2nd is for the 19-20 Rotary year.
Next. Howard, you talked about, another call for grants. And I know that Rotary says starting January 1, this coming year, that if there's unused DDF, if the district has DDF on deposit, that we can actually now get 20% of that back and use them as district grants. How are you going to do that? Are you going to have the people use that for the next Rotary year? How are you going to make that work?
Well, the unfortunate thing is we don't have much unused DDF because our demands the last several years. Yeah, so we've gotten a bunch, that email went out to the world. We've had a multiple number of people coming back thinking there was a gold mine there. This is at best, a Krugon. There's like one little one there yet and stuff like that. So it's not a lot of dollars in our district, mostly because of the fact that our 90 clubs want to use up the money that we do have.
Great. Another question I have for you. On Rotary Direct, I understand after I went to training here this summer that anybody who signs on for Rotary Direct now, as quote a new person in it, they can go in anytime and change how they do it. Raise the amount, lower the amount, change how often the donation. In other words, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, system's gotten much better. One of the more important things, you can change the credit card. One of the problems they have, and that's all the online system, when a credit card expires, it obviously ruins your Rotary Direct area. So the new system now is much better and much stronger and vibrant and being able to do that. The interesting thing is that if you want to give money to both the annual fund and the polio fund, you need to sign up twice. So you make a commitment to each of the 2 funds through their process, and you have 2 amounts coming out. And we encourage both. We obviously want, annual fund contributions to every return year. We also want continuing support of the End Polio campaign. That number just, they skipped over. We have a commitment to do $50 million a year to end polio, thereby getting $100 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That $50 million ends up being about $1,500 a club. So we're asking every club to contribute $1,500 through to the polio campaign. In most cases, polio contributions are done as fundraisers for the clubs. Some other ones are, and where foundation ones are typically individual contributions. Not necessarily, individuals also give to the polio campaign too. But we're looking for clubs, even small ones like yourselves, to try and commit to $1,500 to the polio campaign. And then obviously we're looking to every return every year to the annual fund.
So at this time, I'd like to open it up to other people to ask questions. I can turn my sound down, Karen, if you want to ask.
Go ahead and ask him.
What am I asking him?
Has that notice about $1,500 a club gone out to all of presidents?
So Howard, Karen wants to know. Karen wants to know that the request for $1,500 per club for polio, has that gone out to all the club presidents in the district?
It actually went out by Barry Razin himself. he sent an email to all Rotarians. So it was one of his, he's actually been quite useful in his emails that I can pull it up again, but he's done it. And I think Craig, who's also been very forward in his emails regularly, is also referred to that. So that's the place where that $1,500 has been stated. It's
Okay.
not in Gold Central though. We don't put a, that we do, there is a polio goal there, but that's, we haven't challenged that in that area.
Thank you. Please, anyone else? It's an open floor. Please ask Howard some questions. Oh, I got her muted, sorry. Chuck, Sasha, Jim, Wade, any questions for Howard?
I know Chuck from his prior experience with our club, and he's a great contributor to the foundation. And I thank you, Chuck, for all you've given in the past.
And I plan to keep giving.
Thanks.
Sasha, go ahead.
So I was, if you saw me like moving around, I was actually just typing because sometimes I don't remember things so well. So the benefactor is the fund that you will use after you're no longer in the club / alive.
For many, many years for you.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, because I just started, I've been kind of like bouncing around careers, and obviously I moved countries, so I'm kind of just starting out. So the amount that I can give is relatively small, but I kind of just wanted to start planting seeds in the places that would be most beneficial for me. Like, where would you recommend I start?
Well,
Where it's more beneficial for like the club. I mean, where would my donations be the most useful?
I'm a big proponent. The one that feeds the grants is the annual fund, and that's the every return every year. We actually are only asking to do that is $25. We obviously are hoping that you go $200 to that, so you could do it. If you sign up for Rotary Direct, Rotary Direct needs a minimum of $10 per draw, so you can do $10 a month, and that would give $120 in for the annual fund, and that can all be done through Rotary Direct. The bequest in the is looking more towards people who are more senior and getting closer to those days. Someone like Bill in that area.
Hey. But Sasha, the advantage to that, Sasha, is at any time as you're moving around in your jobs and places, if you decide you need to suspend those donations for a while, you can do that.
Yeah.
And then when you're settled again, you can pick up and continue on. So like Howard said, $25 a year, or if it works, $10 a month. I mean, whatever you can, like Howard, I think annual fund's a good spot for that.
Annual fund. Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because I'm on the website right now, and you said that if you wanted to donate to 2, you have to do it twice.
Right.
So I would look at the annual fund, because then they see the polio and the miles 10 polio.
Right.
We want the top one. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, please?
I just want to emphasize what a good charity it is to give to, because you're not buying, some guy's $800,000 a year salary to
I like that.
Absolutely, Chuck. Absolutely. And I like what Howard said about Rotary. I wrote this down, that we are so much different than all other organizations. Like, what do you say, those with animal symbols? Because we do have, our distinctive difference is the foundation, and what that foundation does in the world. And so that was an excellent point, Howard, and I wrote that down for further reference. And that the Rotarians are like-minded people. We have a common purpose when we donate.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Jim, you have anything to say? No? Okay.
He knows it. Oh,
And Wade. Okay. Well, Howard, I guess I want to thank you very much. I do want to say before we sign off, though, that I'm sure that our club is doing pretty well with foundation donations. I think a lot of that was the fact that we weren't counted because we were a new club in the first of the year, because we have a lot of generous donors in our club. Although this wasn't done through a grant, I want you to know that our club has donated $2,500 that will fund 6 schools in Guatemala and Kenya. And we're partnering with World Possible, and we're supplying Rachel pies and Chromebooks to 6 schools. And I'm very proud of this club for doing that. That's our very first project. And the lady who's the executive director, Nicole Comforto, is actually going to be speaking at Howard at the Area 1314 Foundation dinner next March.
Yeah. And I'll be at that dinner.
She'll be the speaker.
Yes, I'll be at the dinner.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Sasha, I see you raised your hand. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, because I heard you mention that before about the project in Guatemala. How can I get involved in that? Is that through Rotary Direct as well?
That is actually a donation directly to our Rotary Club.
How do I do that?
I will send you an email, okay? I'll
Thank
write this
you.
down and send it. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
I know it's a project that Chuck has contributed to, and I think Wade has, and I have, and our treasurer, Fred Wright, has a real passion for Kenya, and he and his wife donated a significant amount of money to help fund one of the schools over there. So Sasha, I will send you the information, okay? And that's, thank you, that's wonderful.
So Bill, of course, you know, had you applied for that through a grant, it would have been a 5,000 one, and it would have been 12 schools instead of 6 schools.
Well,
Howard, I absolutely know that, but we didn't have that much money in the treasury yet. We need to, we have to spend it first, right, to get it reimbursed. And if we had 5,000 in our treasury, believe me, we would have been on a district grant.
Well, it can actually be done with a member forwarding the money to the club and then getting reimbursed by the district after it's being spent. There's nothing.
Okay. Chuck, Wade, anybody want to offer to donate that money to the club first?
Well, I was actually not even donating. They could advance it to the club in anticipation of the payment back from the grant.
That's actually an excellent point, Howard. You know, I'm sorry, I wasn't really kidding, but that's an excellent point. Maybe the next go around, we can look at something like that. That is a good idea. So I told you about the grant sending. Wade, we have a couple minutes. Can you said you took a Rotary vacation. Can you tell us what you did?
Yeah, so I got, I'm good. I got a chance to go to London and Paris. So that was fun. And of course, I wanted to sneak in an opportunity to visit a Rotary Club while I was there. And I did a little searching, and I learned that the Rotary Club of London was the first chartered club outside of the United States. And so that sounded really interesting. So I wanted to go and visit them. And so I did a little research, and on the day I was going, which was November 5th, they were doing Stanley Leverton Day. And it's a really big deal for them. And I did a little research on it before I left. And then of course I got the whole spiel when I was there. So Stanley Leverton, first of all, does anybody know who Stanley Leverton was? So this is really fascinating. Until about 1939, Rotary required that there be no more than one club in every city. So so that obviously posed an interesting problem for really big cities like Chicago and New York, where you could have a pretty big club, but you could only have one of any classification, right? So it was an exclusive, so you could only have one lawyer and one doctor and one dentist and that kind of thing. So there was waiting lists to join the Rotary clubs, and so they would manage these, and it was a really big deal. Well, at one point, somebody had written into the Rotarian, which was the magazine, of course, today and at the time, and suggested changing the Constitution so that you could have more than one Rotary club. And there was a lot of negativity toward doing that. You might be surprised to learn. And Stanley Leverton, who was past president of the Rotary Club of London, wrote in a rather long letter, and this is the weekly program for the Rotary Club of London, and on the back of it is Stanley Leverton's letter, and and he was a member of the club, obviously, and so every year on this date they celebrate his contribution to Rotary because it was a really big deal.
Mhm.
If the London Club had not made such an effort, we should today be the only Rotary Club serving a population as large as the whole of Canada.
Wow.
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 Right? So it is a pretty darn big deal. So yeah, so the article that was listed here was shown on the May 1939 issue of the Rotarian, and basically was instrumental in getting that change made, which was really quite cool. And then the other neat thing I got to bring back was my visitor card, right? So I left it unfilled out because I didn't want to mess it up. But it's really quite cool because they use the same design as they've used for, well, probably 60 years or so. I would imagine this is a fairly old design and really custom cut and everything. Nice cardboard. So yeah, pretty amazing stuff. So I was really encouraged by that. And then we had the Debbie Hodge, who is the RIBI president. Now what's interesting about that is Ribby is the president of all the clubs in the United Kingdom and Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about our governor, right, who controls a fairly limited area. This is a tremendous amount of clubs and Rotarians that she is in charge of. So I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to sit there when she was visiting on Stanley Leverton Day. And so she got to do her presentation on inspiring Rotarians to do more. And it was a very inspiring speech. And I did invite her to maybe come and join us, or even come to the Northwest and come and visit sometime maybe after her term was up, because she has plenty to do, obviously. But she's an incredible speaker, and like I said, I just feel really fortunate that I got the chance to go. And of course, it's also worth saying that they have a raffle. You know, the 50%. It's not a 50% raffle. They just have a raffle for a gift card, and I bought one ticket and I won.
Oh, they don't like it when outsiders win, Wade.
Oh, you'd be surprised. They were some of the most hospitable and inviting Rotarians I've ever met. They called you up twice. They had 3 people going around and introducing you to the club. It was just remarkable. And I did have to bring my tie and vest and everything because they dress up. So it is a very fancy hotel. I'll have to find a way to share some pictures because I got there early and I had tea. And that's probably, I mean, I've been to the Palmer House in Chicago. I've been to some pretty fancy hotels. And this one just has them all beat, hands down. Italian waiters weren't running around and delivering your tea and everything like that. So anyway, I could just go on and on. It was a really fun vacation, and this was a real big highlight.
What was the cost of the meal there?
£23.
Which is
Reasonable.
Yeah. And it was a hunk of salmon that was probably this big. And it was just delicious. It was one of the best Rotarian regular club meals I think I've ever gotten.
Because Seattle Four is at $35.
Oh, no kidding! I did not know that.
Yeah.
The other one, Wade, I challenged London. London may be the existing first club. It's my understanding of the history of Rotary that Cuba actually had a Rotarian club. It was the first international club, although obviously it closed down when communism took over.
Oh, I see. So maybe they just say it because they're the only surviving one, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So two things for you, Wade. Three, fantastic experience.
Yeah.
Karen and I have had the opportunity to do visits in other countries. And although it looks different, it sounds different, it still looks like Rotary.
Oh, yeah.
So do me a favor, send me some pictures. I will put them up. I can do a carousel on the website so people can see what you did, and we can give it a cute title. And the other thing is, any chance that lady would, if not be able to speak to us live, do maybe a recorded talk to us?
That is a
The
great
E-Club?
idea. That's a great idea. I'll see how I can get a hold of her.
Awesome. Awesome. That would be great.
How many in the club?
Oh, how many Karen wants to know how many are in the London Club?
Well, that's a great question. There were at least, I don't know what their head count is, but there were at least 40, 45 in the meeting room. And there were a lot of visitors. And a guy from Mauritius who I'm hoping to do a little vocational exchange with. So that should be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Okay. That is awesome. We're getting close to the hour. I did want to ask Chuck, though, are you now snowboarding for the rest of the winter down there now?
Snowboarding?
Snowbirding? I said snowboarding. Snowbirding?
Yeah, I'm here till May.
Till May again. Okay. Great. I mean, I wish I'd known you were down here. We might have tried to find some way to meet in the middle at some time. But anyway, I'm glad you're down here enjoying the weather with us. It's beautiful up here. Anything else for the good of the order? Sasha, I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. And we're very pleased that you're part of our club now. That's really, really exciting.
I'm
And
so
Jim?
happy I could stay in Rotary. I don't know if any of you guys know, but I was a part of Harborside in Victoria. They're a morning club, and mornings are the only time I'm ever free. So there is a Rotary club in my city. All of them only meet at lunch. And I don't want to throw any shade, but the Rotary clubs in Japan operate a little differently, and it's not always like a service club. Sometimes it's more about what you can give. So I don't think my eligibility would have I don't think I would have met the requirements. So I was really sad for like a couple weeks. I thought that I would have to leave Rotary until I could either make more money or move somewhere that like had a Rotary club that would meet when I could meet them. So the E-Club like really saved me here. So I'm very, very happy to stay involved.
Wonderful. We're very pleased to have you.
Sasha, what city are you in?
I am in Akita City. It's in Akita Prefecture. And funny enough, it's right beside Morioka, which is Victoria's sister city. So at some point I really want to visit them. But I was a Rotary youth exchange actually in Japan. I was over in South, outside of Tokyo. And it was the Port Townsend Sunrise Rotary Club that sponsored me going over there, even though I'm Canadian. But yeah, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful Rotary connections. I'm so glad you're staying with Rotary too.
Oh, it was my dream to become a Rotarian when I was like 16. So I'm very glad to have finally made it here.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's just great. Anything else for the good of the order before we say a final thank you to Howard and sign off for the night? Okay. If not, Howard, thank you very much for speaking to us tonight. I don't know what happened to Debbie Vance. She was going to be here. In fact, she asked me to send her the link. Well, I don't know what happened, but anyway, I will tell her that she can sign on sometime other time, but she really wanted to see you tonight. So anyway, with that said,
you recorded it, right? So you'll post this or not?
I did record it, and it'll take me a couple days after I get home to get it up and running, but I will record it. Yep. I mean, it is being recorded.
Great.
Okay. With that said, everyone, thank you very much. Great meeting, and we'll see you in the December meeting. So everyone, good evening. Oh, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
See you, Sasha.
Goodbye.